welcome back to the vlog. In this episode we're going to explore the Shroppy Canal, one of my favourites. It's a canal that's not very built up, very countrified. It's also surprisingly straight, which makes for a lovely switch between deep cuttings and high embankments. Let's see how we get on. It was another beautiful day. We didn't want to go too far today, about 16 miles and only one lock. We wanted to get to around about the Shroppy visitors moorings, but we also wanted to stop off at a few places and just to take it quite easy. So we set off at a very gentle pace on glassy waters, heading through the countryside. The character of the south section of the Shropshire Union Canal, or the Shroppy Canal as we like to call it, is characterised by a couple of things. First of all, on the towpath side you'll often find a shelf, making it quite hard to get up against the towpath to stop for the night. The second is it's very straight, as I mentioned earlier, with deep cuttings, and this is because the canal actually was one of the later canals built. It was started in the early 1820s and was actually completed in 1835. By that time the engineering technology and the general approach to canals was to go straight, and there was a lot of digging, as you can see in this deep cutting here. We approached the lovely village of Brewood. The locals were out in force for a fishing competition, which always creates an interesting dilemma. Some fishermen want you to go quickly past so they can get on with the competition, others want you to slow right down so you don't disturb their fishing. Fortunately here the moored boats on the offside meant that going slow was the only option, but I did feel for the fishermen because there was quite a queue of boats coming down behind us. Still, I think most of them were good-natured and were just glad to be out on the bank on a lovely day. So we've just stopped for breakfast, and this spot is quite special to us. It's the spot we spent the very first night aboard a hire boat, Pioneer. We're at Stretton aqueduct, right out in the countryside. It's beautiful here. The aqueduct itself was built in 1835 and was designed by Thomas Telford, and it carries the canal here over the A5. Our only lock for the day was at the beautiful little village of Wheaton Ashton. There's also a facilities point here, so we decided to pull over, top up with water and get rid of some of the rubbish. There was quite a lot of boat activity here. It was nice to see lots of people on the move, although squeezing between a fiberglass boat and a metal boat is always a bit of a nervy moment. You certainly don't want to be touching fiberglass with a narrowboat. More straight canal followed. It is lovely just to be cruising down, very, very easy. You can see for miles. At Gosnell, we stopped on the 48-hour visitors' moorings. We had a spot of lunch and then went off to explore the surrounding area. It's a lovely little place. There's a pub right on the river here, although we were surprised just to see how empty it actually was. I also marvelled at the stonework at this bridge. It's quite incredible, the care and the skill to create such beautiful patterns. Around mid-afternoon we set off again, this time heading in the direction of Norbury Junction. The fuel tank by now was getting desperately low and I really wanted to get there and get a bit of a fill up before they closed for the day. Norbury Junction is always a busy place, and even though the COVID restrictions had been around, today was no different. There were people on the bridge and there were people milling around buying ice creams. It was really nice to see. Also nice to see was the fuel berth being empty, so we were able to swing on and fill the tanks up. Shortly after leaving Norbury, you head into a place called the Grub Street cutting, and you come across this very, very famous double culvert bridge, number 40. This has got to be the most photographed bridge on the cut, and if I'm honest, I don't really know why. It's not the most incredibly beautiful bridge, it's just a very, very unusual. In contrast to the cutting, as you continue north, the next feature is the Shebden embankment that takes you high up above the landscape and affords you fantastic views of the scenery around. If it's going to be windy as well, I can imagine this is not the place to be, but today was really, really calm for us. It's really quite beautiful. Just when you pass the embankment itself, you come to the visitors' moorings. Again, a nice little sheltered spot. There were quite a few boats here, but there was just enough room for us to squeeze onto the moorings, and so here we spent the night. So we spent the night here at Shebden Visitors Moorings. It's a good place to spend the night, nice and quiet. Today we're going to crack on towards Market Drayton. The weather's not quite so hot today, so we might even get a little bit rained on maybe. We'll have to see how we get on. Hopefully we'll get all the way there in the dry, but you never know. It's summer, it's England. Let's see how we get on. Our route would take us around about 11 miles and through 10 locks. We planned to stop short of the Audlem locks because there's quite a lot in that flight and we wanted to tackle those fresh. The factory, seen here on the right, was established in 1911 by Cadbury's to make chocolate crumb for the Bourneville factory. This site has seen many familiar products over the years, including Marvel, Angel Delights and Bird's Custard Powder, all made here. One of my favourites when I was young, Smash, was also made here. But to my knowledge, only the chocolate crumb was transported by the canal. We passed this lovely little narrowboat. It's probably the smallest narrowboat that I've ever seen. A chap obviously had it out overnight and was just heading back to his mooring. I love the fact that he doesn't actually even need a winding hole. It's so small. What a fantastic thing. One of the lovely things about being on the canal, and one of the things that's a real privilege, is to see all the beautiful wildlife. The herons along this stretch are not only quite numerous, but incredibly brave. This guy just sat by the bridge until we were right alongside him. A real privilege for us. Between Knighton and Market Drayton is this very deep cutting. As we approached, there were a lot of warning signs about rock slips and landslides. I think the wet winter had played havoc with the canal sides. The stretch of canal has a very grotto-like feeling and is really interesting to travel down. But any time you move off the centre to the sides, you become very aware of the shallow patches. And from time to time you come across the evidence of the rockfalls that have taken place. When I saw another boat approaching, I found a section which was a little bit deeper and just hung back to let him by, give him as much space as possible, and I think he appreciated this. Just before you reach Market Drayton, you pass through the very picturesque Tyler locks. These are a perfect example of the sort of picturesque architecture and engineering of the period. As we reached Market Drayton, the heavens just opened and it chucked it down with rain for about 20 minutes. So we decided now would be a good time to stop and have some lunch. After that, and a brief foray to the shops, we headed back on our way again. I loved these new houses here with their moorings, but was really surprised to see how few people had taken the advantage and got boats moored outside their houses. How convenient would that be, just to have your boat out there to load up and unload? As we continued north past Market Drayton, we came across this boat floating in the middle of the canal. At first I thought somebody was either manoeuvring in or off of the bank, but I quickly noticed it had nobody at the helm. The wind was blowing across the river and the stern line had obviously broken. That did mean that the boat was quite wedged against the other bank. So Susie and I between us, with Susie using her hands to push the boat out of the way and me just nudging the boat forward very gently, we were able to get past. We did moor up and then try and re-secure the boat, but by that time the wind had blown it back and we just couldn't shift it around. Hopefully somebody rescued it a little bit later on in the day. We continued north for about another hour and a half, through the locks at Audlem and on to the Hawksmoor Bridge, where we found a nice little mooring spot for the night. We chose this spot because it was quite near the top of the Audlem flight, which we were going to tackle the next day. That's about all we've got time for this time. I hope you've enjoyed watching, Next time we're going to continue north, through Northwich and onto the Middlewich line. If you've enjoyed this vlog, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to get further notifications. Until then, thank you for watching.